There are things that happen in national forests that the Park Service doesn't want you to know about. Disappearances that don't make sense. Sounds that can't be explained. Rules that seem arbitrary until you break them and understand why they exist. Forest rangers see things. They find things. And most importantly, they're told to keep quiet about things. I'm about to share 7 stories from people who worked in our national parks and forests. Some of them still do. Some of them quit after what they experienced. And all of them were told, in one way or another, that these stories were never supposed to leave the ranger station. If you enjoy horror stories about the places where civilization ends and something else begins, hit that like button and subscribe to Dark Signal for more. Let's start with the Fire Lookout. Story 1. The Fire Lookout Tower. Ryan Mitchell spent 10 weeks alone in a fire lookout tower in the Cascade Range of Washington. The tower sat at 6,000 feet elevation, accessible only by a 3-mile hike from the nearest forest road. His job was simple: watch for smoke, report fires, maintain the equipment, and stay sane in complete isolation. The ranger who trained him, a grizzled guy named Frank who'd been doing this for 20 years, gave him the standard briefing: radio protocols, weather monitoring, wildlife safety. Then, as Ryan was about to hike up to the tower for his first shift, Frank added something else. "You're gonna hear things up there," Frank said. "Voices mostly. Sometimes they'll sound like people you know. Your mom, your girlfriend, your buddy from college. They'll call your name. They'll ask you to come down. They'll sound distressed, like they need help." Okay. Ryan waited for the explanation. "Don't answer. Don't go looking. Don't even acknowledge that you heard them. Just stay in the tower, keep the door locked, and wait until morning. The voices only come at night." "What are they?" Frank's expression was unreadable. "Doesn't matter what they are. What matters is that if you answer them, if you go looking, you won't come back the same. If you come back at all." Ryan thought Frank was messing with him, some kind of hazing ritual for new lookouts, but he nodded and said he understood. The first 3 weeks were peaceful. Boring even. Ryan spent his days scanning the horizon for smoke, reading books, and trying to get used to the profound silence. At night, he'd watch the stars, more stars than he'd ever seen in his life, and feel utterly alone in the best possible way. Then, on night 23, he heard his girlfriend's voice. "Ryan? Ryan, are you up there?" He was sitting at the desk, updating his log, when her voice drifted up from somewhere below the tower. Clear as day. Melissa's voice, with that slight rasp she had when she was worried. "Ryan, I'm lost. I can't find the trail. Please, I need help." His hand froze over the logbook. That was impossible. Melissa was in Seattle, 150 miles away. She didn't even know exactly where his tower was located. "Ryan, please. It's getting dark. I'm scared." Every instinct screamed at him to grab his flashlight and go help her. But he remembered Frank's warning. "Don't answer. Don't go looking." He sat there, hands clenched, listening to his girlfriend's voice call for help for 20 minutes. She begged. She cried. She said she could see his light and was trying to reach it, but kept getting turned around. Ryan kept his mouth shut and his door locked. At exactly midnight, the voice stopped. The forest went silent again. He didn't sleep that night. Just sat by the window, flashlight in hand, watching the darkness. The next morning, he radioed Frank. "I heard the voices." "What did they say?" "My girlfriend said she was lost and needed help." "You go looking?" "No." "Good. It'll probably try again. Might be different voices. Might be more convincing. Don't fall for it." Over the next 7 weeks, Ryan heard his mother, his best friend, a child crying, someone screaming for help, and once, most disturbing of all, his own voice calling up to the tower, asking to be let in. He never answered, never looked, never left the tower at night. On his last day, Frank hiked up to relieve him. As they were walking back down the trail, Ryan asked, "What happens if you do answer?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. Had a lookout about 5 years back. Good kid like you. Heard his little sister calling for help. She died in a car accident 2 years prior, so he knew it couldn't really be her. But hearing her voice... Frank shook his head. He went out with his flashlight. We found him 3 days later, sitting at the base of the tower. Wouldn't talk, wouldn't eat, just stared at nothing. Had to be hospitalized. Far as I know, he never spoke again. What did he see? Don't know. But whatever it was, it took something from him that he's never getting back. Ryan never did another fire lookout shift. The money wasn't worth it. Nothing was worth hearing the voices of people you love, twisted into something else, calling from the darkness. Story 2, The Stairs in the Woods. Jennifer Park worked search and rescue in a national forest in Colorado for 3 years. She'd seen her share of lost hikers, twisted ankles, and the occasional bear encounter. But nothing in her training prepared her for the stairs. She found the first set during a routine patrol on a rarely used trail. Right in the middle of the forest, about 20 yards off the path, stood a staircase. Not remnants of an old building, a staircase. Freestanding, wooden, about 8 steps leading up to nothing. It looked freshly built. No rot, no weathering, perfectly intact. Just sitting there in the middle of the woods. Jennifer radioed it in. "I've got some kind of structure on the North Fork Trail. Looks like someone built a staircase out here." Her supervisor, Tom, responded immediately. "What kind of staircase?" "Wood. Freestanding. Goes up about 8 feet, and then just ends." Long pause. Then, "Don't touch it. Don't climb it. Mark the location and move on." "Should I report it for removal? It's definitely not supposed to be here." "It's not getting removed. Just mark it and keep moving." Jennifer thought that was strange, but she followed orders. She marked the location on her GPS and continued her patrol. 2 weeks later, she found another one. This time it was metal, spiral, about 15 feet high. Same thing, freestanding, no building attached, no logical reason for its existence. When she radioed it in, Tom's response was the same. "Don't touch it, mark it, move on." After the third staircase, this one ornate, wooden with carved banisters, Jennifer confronted Tom back at the station. "What's the deal with the stairs? Why aren't we removing them?" Tom looked around to make sure they were alone. "How long have you been with us?" 3 years. "Then you've earned the real answer." He pulled out a map and spread it across the table. Red X marks dotted the forest. Dozens of them. Every X is a staircase we've found. Been documenting them for about 30 years now. They show up, we mark them, we leave them alone. Why? What are they? We don't know. But we know what happens when people interact with them. Tom pulled out a folder. 1987, hiker climbed one. Found him 2 days later, 8 miles from where he should have been. No memory of how he got there. 1993, kid dared his friend to touch one. Kid's hand aged 40 years in an instant. Had to amputate. 2001, woman sat on the bottom step to rest. When she stood up, she said 3 months had passed, but she'd only been sitting for a few seconds according to her watch. Jennifer felt cold. So they're dangerous. There's something. We don't advertise them because we don't want people seeking them out. Don't want them becoming some kind of tourist attraction. Most hikers never notice them. They're usually far enough off trail. But if you find one, you mark it and you move on. That's the rule. Has anyone ever? Jennifer hesitated. Has anyone disappeared because of them? Tom's expression darkened. 2015, ranger named Mike Chun found a staircase and decided he needed to know what they were. Climbed one during his patrol. We found his radio 3 days later, sitting on the top step. No mic, no trace of him. His radio was still on, battery dead. We listened to the recording. And 10 hours of him screaming. Just screaming. Then silence. Jennifer never went near another staircase. She saw 4 more during her time with the Park Service, marked them all, and kept moving. But she thinks about them sometimes. Wonders what they are, where they lead, why they exist in places where nothing should be built. She's just glad she never found out. Story 3, The Trail Markers. Kevin Torres maintained hiking trails in a national park in Maine. His job involved clearing fallen trees, repairing erosion damage, and most importantly, maintaining the trail markers, painted blazes on trees that guided hikers along the correct path. The veteran ranger who trained him, Diane, had one specific instruction that seemed odd. If you ever see a trail marker that you didn't paint, mark it on your GPS and report it immediately. Don't follow it. Don't try to see where it leads. Just report it and move on. Why would there be markers I didn't paint? Because something likes to add its own, and those markers don't lead anywhere you want to go. Kevin thought it was probably teenagers pranking hikers, or maybe old markers from unofficial trails. But after 6 months on the job, he encountered his first fake marker. It was on a popular family trail, the kind that gets dozens of hikers every weekend. The marker was painted perfectly, same color, same size as the official ones, but it pointed off trail, into dense forest where there was no path. Kevin marked the location and radioed Diane. She showed up within an hour with a can of black paint and covered the fake marker completely. How often does this happen? Kevin asked. Monthly, sometimes weekly. They appear overnight, always pointing into the deepest, most dangerous parts of the forest. Who's doing it? We don't know that it's a who. That got Kevin's attention. What do you mean? 3 years ago, we installed cameras near spots where these markers frequently appeared. Figured we'd catch whoever was doing it. Diane pulled out her phone and showed him a video. Night vision footage showed a tree. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then slowly, as if being painted by an invisible brush, a trail marker appeared on the tree. Perfectly formed. No person visible. No equipment. Just a marker appearing out of nothing. That's impossible. Yeah, we thought so too, but we've got dozens of videos just like it. Have people followed them? The fake markers. Diane's expression went grim. 4 times that we know of. 2003, a family of 3 ignored the trail and followed a fake marker. Found them 2 days later. The parents were catatonic. Their daughter wouldn't stop crying and kept saying, "It showed us the way, it showed us the way," over and over. They recovered eventually, but they never said what they saw. 2009, experienced hiker. Military background. Followed a marker out of curiosity. We found him 6 hours later. He'd aged 30 years. Medical exam confirmed it wasn't makeup or a prank. His body had actually aged decades in hours. 2014, 2 college kids. Followed markers deep into the forest. Found one of them. Just one. He said his friend went further and never came back. Search teams never found the second kid. And last year, Diane hesitated. Ranger in turn, smart kid, got curious, said he was going to follow a marker, document what he found, solve the mystery. We tried to stop him. He went anyway. Found his camera 3 days later. Memory card was full. 8 hours of footage. Do you want to know what it showed? I'm not sure. 8 hours of him walking. The same trees. The same path. Over and over. Like he was in a loop. And every 15 minutes, you could hear him saying, "Almost there. The marker says it's just ahead." He was convinced he was making progress, but he was just walking in circles. We found his body exactly where he started. Died of dehydration after walking for 8 hours in a circle 50 feet across. Kevin's job became more than maintaining trails. It became hunting for fake markers. He found them weekly, sometimes daily, covered them with black paint, reported every single one. He never followed them, never even looked in the direction they pointed, because in the deepest part of the forest, something was painting directions to a place that no one should ever find, and it was getting better at hiding its markers among the real ones. Story 4. The Wildlife That Isn't. Sarah Kim worked as a wildlife officer in a national forest in Montana. Her job involved tracking animal populations, investigating unusual animal behavior, and occasionally dealing with dangerous wildlife encounters. She'd seen bears, mountain lions, wolves, pretty much everything that lived in those woods. Then she saw the thing that shouldn't exist. It was during a routine survey hike. Sarah was documenting elk migration patterns when she noticed tracks. Large, 4-toed, almost like a bear's but wrong. The gait was off, the depth inconsistent, and there was something about the spacing that made her skin prickle. She followed them for about a quarter mile until they stopped, just ended mid-stride, as if whatever made them had simply vanished. Sarah photographed them and brought the images to her supervisor, Marcus, who had 30 years of wildlife experience. He looked at the photos for a long time. Finally, "Where'd you find these?" "North section, about 2 miles past the creek." "And they just stopped?" "Yeah, middle of nowhere. No blood, no signs of a struggle. Just stopped." Marcus opened a filing cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were dozens of photos of similar tracks, all from different locations in the park, all ending the same way. "We call it the not deer," Marcus said. "The what?" "Start paying attention when you see deer. Really paying attention. Most of them are normal, but every now and then, you'll see one that's wrong." Over the next few months, Sarah started noticing. Most deer looked and behaved normally, but occasionally, she'd see one that moved wrong. The legs bent at angles that weren't quite right. The head turned too far. The way it walked was jerky, unnatural, like something that had learned how a deer moves, but didn't quite understand the mechanics. The first time she saw one up close, every instinct screamed at her to run. It was standing in a clearing, perfectly still, watching her. It looked exactly like a deer except for its eyes. Deer eyes are dark, gentle, prey animal eyes. This thing's eyes were wrong. Too aware, too intelligent, too focused. She froze. They stared at each other for what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds. Then it turned and walked away, and Sarah could see its back legs were bending backward with each step. Not broken, not injured, just wrong. She reported it to Marcus. He nodded. "Yeah, that's one of them." "What are they?" "We don't know. We've tried tracking them, studying them, even attempted to capture one once. Doesn't work. They appear, they're seen, and then they're gone. No den, no habitat, no patterns we can identify. Just, sometimes there's a not deer in the woods." "Are they dangerous?" "Not directly. They don't attack people, but they have this effect. Anyone who sees one up close and realizes what they're seeing, they change. They stop wanting to be in the forest alone. Start hearing things, seeing movement in their peripheral vision, like the not deer opened their eyes to something, and now they can't close them again." Sarah experienced exactly that. After seeing the not deer, she started noticing other things. Birds that flew with too many wings, squirrels that watched her with human expressions, trees that seemed to breathe. She quit 6 months later. The forest had become something else, something that wore the skin of nature but was hollow underneath. Marcus wasn't surprised when she turned in her resignation. Happens to everyone who sees one. Some last longer than others. You made it 6 months. That's better than most. "What about you? How long have you been here?" 30 years. But I've never looked directly at one. Whenever I sense something wrong, I look away. I don't confirm what I'm seeing. That's the trick. Don't look too close. Don't pay too much attention. Let the forest keep its secrets. Sarah lives in the city now. She doesn't hike anymore. Doesn't camp. Doesn't even like going to parks. Because once you've seen something wearing a deer's body, once you've looked into eyes that understand you're looking back, once you've seen nature's mask slip and reveal something else underneath, you can never unsee it. Story 5. The Campers Who Shouldn't Be There. Daniel Cross worked night patrol as a park ranger in Yosemite. His job was simple. Drive the park roads after dark. Make sure campers were at their designated sites. Check that fires were properly extinguished. And keep an eye out for wildlife near populated areas. The veteran ranger who trained him, Rita, had one rule that seemed excessive. If you see campers in a location that's not a designated camping area, especially if there's no vehicle nearby, you do not approach them. You note the location, radio it in, and leave. Let the day shift handle it. Why not just tell them to move? Because the ones camping in wrong locations aren't always campers. Daniel thought this was paranoid until his 3rd week on the job. He was driving past Glacier Point around 2 a.m. when he saw a campfire. There were no campgrounds in that area, just a parking lot and some trails. He pulled over and grabbed his flashlight. Through the trees, he could see 4 figures sitting around a fire. They looked like normal campers. Tents behind them, cooler to the side, typical camping gear. But something was off. The way they sat was too still. The fire wasn't casting shadows properly. and even from 50 feet away. Daniel couldn't hear them talking or making any sound. He remembered Rita's warning. Instead of approaching, he backed away slowly and radioed in. "I've got unauthorized camping at Glacier Point. For individuals, full camp setup. Requesting backup." Rita's voice came back immediately. "Don't approach. Return to your vehicle and leave the area. Day shift will handle it." "But they're right here. I can just..." "Day shift, Daniel. Leave now." He did. When he checked the location the next morning with the day shift team, there was nothing there. No fire pit, no tent marks, no footprints. Just undisturbed forest. "Happens sometimes," the day shift ranger told him. "We see camps that shouldn't be there. Always at night. Always in wrong locations. And they're always gone by morning." "What are they?" "Best guess. Echoes. Campers from decades ago. People who died in the park and are still camping somehow. Or something pretending to be campers to lure rangers close. Either way, we don't engage." Over the next 8 months, Daniel saw it 6 more times. Always at night. Always in wrong locations. And he followed the rule. He never approached. Until the night he saw his brother. Daniel's brother had died in a hiking accident in Yosemite 5 years prior. Fell from a cliff during a day hike. So when Daniel saw him sitting by a campfire near the same area where he died, every rational thought left his brain. He approached, calling his brother's name. The figure by the fire turned and smiled. It had his brother's face. "Danny, come sit. I've been waiting." Daniel knew it wasn't real. Knew it couldn't be. But he walked closer anyway. That's when he saw the others around the fire. 3 people he didn't recognize. They were all smiling, all watching him. And their eyes were wrong. Too reflective. Like animal eyes catching the light. Daniel stopped. "You're not my brother." The thing with his brother's face tilted its head. "Sure I am. Come closer. Sit with us. We're camping. Just like we used to. Camping sites are all at least 2 miles from here." The smile widened. "We're not in a camping site." The other 3 figures stood up. They moved wrong, like puppets with tangled strings. Daniel ran. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until he reached his truck and drove away. He reported it to Rita the next morning. She listened without interrupting. "You're lucky," she said when he finished. "Most rangers who approach don't come back. Or they come back changed. We had a guy 10 years ago who sat down with them. We found him 2 days later. He was sitting in his truck, smiling. Just sitting there, smiling, staring at nothing. Wouldn't talk. Wouldn't move. Had to be institutionalized." What would have happened if I'd sat down? I don't know. Nobody who sits down with them ever tells us. Either they can't or they won't. Daniel finished his contract, but never renewed. The forest at night had become something else. A stage where things acted out being human, waiting for someone to join the performance. And he'd come way too close to taking a seat. Story 6. The permit that never closed. Grace Sullivan worked the backcountry permit office in a national park in Wyoming. Hikers planning overnight trips had to register, providing their route, duration, and expected return date. When they got back, they'd check in to close their permit. Simple system. Worked well, except for the permits that never closed. Grace's supervisor, Robert, mentioned it during her training. "We've got about a dozen permits in the system that have been open for years, decades in some cases. Why haven't they been closed?" "Because the hikers never came back." That was sobering, but not entirely surprising. People did disappear in the wilderness. It was rare, but happened. "What's weird," Robert continued, "is that some of them are still out there." "What do you mean?" "We get reports. Sightings. People who match the description of long-missing hikers. Same clothes, same gear. But they don't respond when called. They don't come to ranger stations. They just keep hiking. For years. For decades." Robert pulled up the digital records. "Look at this one. Jeremy Vance. Filed a permit in 1987 for a 3-day solo hike. Never checked back in. We found his campsite, but no Jeremy. His permit has been open for 35 years. He's probably dead. Probably. Except we get sightings. About once a year, someone reports seeing a hiker matching his description on the same trail he originally planned to hike. Same yellow backpack, same clothes, but when rangers try to find him, he's gone. Grace thought this was just coincidence until she saw one herself. She was driving to a remote trailhead when she passed a hiker on the road. Male, maybe 30, wearing clothing that looked decades out of style. Faded blue jacket, old-style backpack. He was walking with purpose, staring straight ahead. Grace pulled over and got out. "Excuse me, sir. Do you need any assistance?" The hiker didn't stop, didn't acknowledge her, just kept walking. "Sir? Hey." She jogged to catch up, got in front of him. He walked right through her. Not around her. Through her. Like she wasn't there. Like she was the ghost and he was real. Grace stumbled backward, her heart hammering. When she turned around, the hiker was already 50 feet away, disappearing around a bend. She radioed Robert. "I just saw one of them. The long-term permits. He walked right through me." "What did he look like?" She described him. There was a long pause. "That's Jeremy Vance. Yellow backpack. Faded blue jacket. But yes, yellow backpack. He filed his permit in 1987. You just saw a man who's been hiking the same trail for 35 years. Over her 2 years at the permit office, Grace logged 17 sightings of long-term permit holders. All of them had been missing for at least a decade. All of them were still hiking, still following their original routes, still wearing their original clothes. None of them ever checked in. None of them ever stopped hiking. Are they dead? Grace asked Robert one day. "I think so. I think they died on those trails, and whatever they were when they were alive just keeps going, keeps following the path they planned. Maybe that's what happens when you love the trail enough. You don't leave it, even after death." Grace thinks about them sometimes. Jeremy Vance, who's been hiking for 35 years. Marion Fletcher, who filed her permit in 1972. David Chun, missing since 2001. All of them out there, following trails, setting up invisible camps, hiking until what? Until they finish their planned route? Until they accept they're dead? Until the forest finally lets them rest? Grace doesn't know. She just knows that there are ghosts in the wilderness who still think they're alive, who still think they're just on a nice backpacking trip, who will walk through you like you're the one who doesn't belong, and their permits will stay open forever, because checking in requires you to accept that the trip is over, and for them, the trip will never be over. Story 7, The Radio Calls. Michael Brennan worked a radio dispatch at a forest ranger station in Oregon. His job was to monitor emergency channels, coordinate responses, and maintain communication with rangers in the field. Standard stuff. Boring mostly. Until he started receiving calls from the dead. It started with a routine check-in. "Station, this is Ranger 7. Checking in from North Quadrant." "Copy, Ranger 7. All clear. All clear. We'll report again at 1,400 hours." Michael logged the call, but when he checked the schedule, Ranger 7 wasn't on duty that day. He radioed his supervisor. "Hey, I just got a check-in from Ranger 7, but the schedule shows nobody assigned to that unit today." His supervisor, Cynthia, went quiet. "What exactly did they say?" "Standard check-in. North Quadrant. All clear." Michael, Ranger 7, was retired from service 15 years ago. The ranger who used that call sign is dead. Someone's probably using the old call sign by mistake. Maybe. Let me know if you get any more calls. Over the next 3 months, Michael logged 47 calls from retired call signs. Rangers who died years ago, checking in from their old patrol areas. The conversations were always brief, always routine, always professional. Then he got a call that changed everything. "Station, this is Ranger 12. I've got a situation." "Go ahead, Ranger 12. I'm at Falcon Ridge. Multiple injuries. Need immediate medical evac." "How many injured?" 4. "Rock slide. 2 critical." Michael dispatched emergency services immediately, but when they arrived at Falcon Ridge, there was no rock slide, no injured hikers, no Ranger 12, because Ranger 12 had died in 1998 in a rock slide at Falcon Ridge. trying to save 4 hikers. He'd failed. All 4 hikers died. Ranger 12 died trying to dig them out. And now, 24 years later, he was still calling for help, still trying to save them. Cynthia pulled Michael into her office. The calls from dead rangers. They're always doing what they were doing when they died. Routine patrols, emergency calls, last radio transmissions. They're stuck in their final moments, repeating them over and over. Can't we, I don't know, help them? We've tried, responding, sending people to their locations, trying to communicate. Nothing changes. They just keep calling, keep repeating their last moments. Eventually, the calls stop. Could be years, could be decades, but they always stop eventually. What makes them stop? Cynthia looked at the wall where photos of former rangers hung. We don't know. Maybe they finally finish whatever they were trying to do. Maybe they finally accept they're gone. Or maybe, she trailed off. Maybe what? Maybe the forest finally absorbs them completely, and they don't even remember they were human anymore. Michael kept his job for another year, logged every ghost call, responded professionally, even knowing nobody was really there. Ranger 12 called 17 more times about the rock slide at Falcon Ridge. Always the same call, always requesting the same medical evac for hikers who'd been dead for 24 years. Michael would dispatch services. They'd find nothing. The cycle would repeat. When he quit, he told Cynthia, I can't keep answering calls from dead people. I can't keep pretending to help them when there's nothing to help. They're gone. They've been gone. I know, but someone has to answer. Because if we don't, if we let those calls go to static, we're abandoning them twice. Once when they died, and once when we stop responding. They're not really there. Maybe, but they think they are. And that's enough. Michael works civilian dispatch now. City stuff. Car accidents, domestic disturbances, noise complaints. Nothing that follows him home. Nothing that calls from beyond. But sometimes, late at night, he thinks about Ranger 12. Still at Falcon Ridge. Still trying to save those hikers. Still calling for help that will never arrive in time. Still hoping that this time, maybe this time, he'll get to them in time. And Michael wonders if one day he'll die at his dispatch desk, and decades later, someone will log a call from him, still trying to help someone, still doing his job, long after his job is finished. 7 stories, 7 rangers, 7 things that the Park Service doesn't want you to know. Because if you knew about the voices in the darkness that sound like people you love, you might not trust that fire lookout tower. If you knew about the stairs that lead nowhere and everywhere, you might not wander off trail. If you knew about the things wearing nature's skin, you might not feel safe in the wilderness at all. And they need you to feel safe. Because our national parks rely on visitors, on people believing that the forests are just trees and animals and natural beauty. They can't tell you about the trail markers that appear overnight, pointing toward places that will trap you. They can't tell you about the campers who aren't camping, who will smile and invite you to sit by their fire and never let you leave. They can't tell you about the hikers who filed permits decades ago and are still walking, still hiking, still following trails long after their bodies should have stopped. And they definitely can't tell you that sometimes the forest speaks, that it calls for help through dead rangers' radios, that it remembers everyone who ever worked there, everyone who ever died there, and keeps them working, keeps them trying, keeps them calling for help that will never come. Rangers see these things. Rangers know these things. And rangers are told to keep quiet, to mark the anomalies on their maps, to note the impossible in their logs, and to never, ever tell the public. Because the wilderness needs to remain wild, and you need to remain unaware of just how wild it really is. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to Dark Signal for more stories they don't want you to hear. And if you're planning a camping trip soon, follow the marked trails. Don't trust voices in the dark. And if you see stairs in the middle of the forest, keep walking. They're not for you. They're for something else. Something that's been waiting in those woods longer than trees have existed. And it's very, very patient. Stay safe out there. Or don't go out there at all. The forest doesn't care either way.